So, thank you very much indeed, Mauro, for the time and generosity. I am very pleased to talk to you.
You're very welcome.
And thanks for hosting me in your beautiful apartment in Lyon. So I have a very introductory note about you, and then we'll start with the question. So actually, again, our talk is not so our talk is comprised of questions, non-questions, and even the anecdotes that you have, philosophical things that you want to add. So not all of them are questions. I start with the introduction. So Mauro Carbone is a leading contemporary Italian philosopher whose work reshapes phenomenology by placing images, perception, and sensibility at the heart of philosophical inquiry. Building on and extending Merleau-Ponty's late ontology of flesh and visibility, he developed the influential concept of sensible ideas, forms of meaning that arise through perception itself. In 1999, you founded and still co-edit, I think, the only international journal inspired by Merleau-Ponty, Chiasmi International, which has become a central platform for interdisciplinary dialogue. After completing the book 2011, The Flesh of Images, your major book on Merleau-Ponty, you progressively shifted your research towards the transformations brought about by contemporary screen culture. So the shift from your philosophical background to your more specific application on screens. So beginning with Philosophy Screen 2016, the first book, you argue that any attempt to elaborate a phenomenology of perception adequate to our time must account for the profound impact of screens on how we perceive, desire, know, and think. Through this expanded phenomenology, you show that image, traditional or digital, is not passive representation, but active events or agents even to reshape subjectivity and the very texture of our lived experience. This research has been crystallized finally in your final book, which is the Towards Anthropology of Screens, which you have written with Lingua, with Professor Lingua, 2019, I suppose.
2023.
23, actually after or during the Corona time, it's as the introduction says. So my first question is, given your philosophical background on Merleau-Ponty, or it is not even a question, who is Mauro Carbone as a philosopher? You can tell about your background, what brought you to Merleau-Ponty, and then what brought you to all these projects. Feel free.
Okay, thank you very much. I learned, thanks to you, that non-questions are even more difficult than questions to answer. There is a word in your presentation that makes a problem for me. You said that I developed my philosophical work about Merleau-Ponty, and at some point I turned toward an application. You were this. You used this term concerning screens. Of course, I totally disagree with this word because there is no relationship from theory and applications in the developing of my research from Merleau-Ponty to, I would say, not the screens, but the screen experiences. it has been a kind of a consistency I saw in this passage from Merleau-Ponty to screen experiences, because at some point, after many, many years as a leading international scholar in Merleau-Ponty's philosophy, I told myself, seeing people using screens all around, that if we really wanted to be faithful to Merleau-Ponty task, the task of understanding what do we do when we perceive. So if we really want to develop a phenomenology of perception today, we absolutely have to understand what does it mean to perceive through screens. So it was not an application, but if you want, an attempt of developing Merleau-Ponty's research on in today's condition. So, in this sense, my work still is a totally philosophical work. Of course, much more difficult than before. First of all, because I don't have an author as a main reference. Secondly, because the field of screen experiences, that is to say, the field of film studies and of media studies, is a very large field that I had to study, and because I chose to reflect upon a condition, our present condition, or our maybe next to come condition, which is something very dynamic and therefore something very difficult to grasp. From this point of view, the book you mentioned, Toward an Anthropology of Screens, has a precise start point. The starting point is the COVID-19 pandemic and the shock this pandemic provoked all over the world, because in the introduction of this book, Graziano Lingua and I suggested to read this shock as the opportunity of a phenomenological epoche. What does it mean, phenomenological epoche? A phenomenological epoche, according to Husserl, is a way of putting into brackets our usual knowledge of the world, not because this knowledge is false, but because it is obvious. Mm-hmm. So it is not problematized. We don't even see the world anymore, because the world is still there. Mm. We come home through the same street, and we don't see this street anymore because it's usual. So the phenomenological epoche, according to Husserl, is the effort of putting into brackets our usual knowledges about our relationship with the world, and try to relearn to see the world again. Mm-hmm. In our interpretation, the shock of the pandemics, the amount of the victims, the lockdowns, and all the experiences we had have been an opportunity to put into brackets our previous relationship with the digital world, the digital revolution, in which we already lived since 35 years, but without really realizing the importance and the depth of the transformation we were lived in. And in particular, this shock allowed us to see, to relearn what screens are for us today. So how our life and our, to say another phenomenological expression, world of life, are changed because of the fact that we live among and through screens all the time. So our relationship with ourselves, the others, the world, are now mediated by screens. Mm-hmm. And this was the point of departure of our reflection.
Right. So that was my non-question that you nicely replied to. One of the concepts that you use throughout your career is arche screen. So it is actually my second non-question. And you show two functions when it comes to arche screen. Arche screen refers to a fundamental anthropological dimension of a screen experiences that is transhistorical, running through the prehistory and history of humankind. Okay. So crucially, as you say, the arche screen operates through an inextricably linked double logic of two pairs of functions: showing and hiding, exposing and protecting. This concept, namely arche screen, emphasizes that the screens were never simply surfaces for display, but relational thresholds, quoting, that, like the hedgerow observed by Leopardi, establishes a distribution of the visible and invisible, while simultaneously protecting us from its exceeding reach. The arche screen, understood this way, is a theme that continuously forms and transforms itself through its historical variation, mediates our overall bodily relationship with the environment. So what I found really interesting in the project, in this consistent project, as you rightly emphasized in the beginning, is that you address this issue, this topic, this concept as transhistorical. it is not only specific to this time, it is throughout the history in different modes and forms. I would be happy. There is no question. There is another invitation for you to talk about another very significant part of your career, your research project.
Thank you so much. So, I'd like to precise, first of all, that I elaborated this notion of archiscreen myself in my 2016 book, published originally in French, 2019 in English, titled Philosophy Screens. Mm. In this book, I proposed this notion of archiscreen, and this notion has been developed in the most recent book I wrote with Graziano Lingua towards an anthropology of screens. But there is a development in the last book with respect to the other one, the previous one. That is to say, in Philosophy Screens, I focused mainly about the functions of screens as showing and hiding surfaces. In this most recent book, thanks to the experience of the pandemic and so on, Graziano and I understood that screens are not just not just a visual dimension, but screens have a wider dimension concerning our whole relationship with the world. Because screens could be screens making shadow, for instance. But the fact of having a shadow is not just a visual experience. Is a bodily experience in a whole sense, in a synesthetic sense. So concerning all our senses, all our sense domains. And we developed this double couple of functions in their chiasmatic mutual relationships in this last book, precisely thanks to the fact that the pandemic reminded us that the word screen comes from the old French verb skirmine, which means to protect. So originally the word skirmine has not a strictly visual meaning, but means it means to protect, and we read this to protect in as a pole of a couple, the other pole of which is to expose. So inextricably screens protect and expose. And inextricably screens at the same time shows and
Protect.
hide. These are the two couples of functions that we summarize in the notion of archiscreen. Why we speak of the notion of archiscreen as a transhistorical notion? Because we think that archiscreen is a notion, is not an object. This is very important. You cannot find an archiscreen on your street. It's a notion indicating some functions, the double couples of the function I mentioned, in their chiasmatic relationship, and this means that to be a screen means to function as a screen. Screens are not object, a particular kind of object. Any kind of object can function as a screen, but also a body can be a screen. When I am on a beach and the sunlight is on me, I produce a shadow, and in this sense, my body is the screen producing the dark spot that I recognize on the beach like my shadow, precisely because my body is a screen. Or better, in this case, my body functions as a screen. So, the notion of archiscreens is a way of indicating these couple of functions in all the different historical, cultural, and technological ways these functions have been developed in prehistorical and historical human experiences. I spoke of archiscreen as a notion and not as a concept, because a concept is something which tends to be static, to be close around its definition. Something transhistorical cannot be close on a strict definition. So we propose to think the notion of archiscreen as a theme in a musical sense. In Western traditional music, we speak of the theme and variations form. Traditionally, the theme and variations form is a form of music where you find, first of all, the theme. After the theme, there are its variations, and then eventually the theme again, like in the case of Goldberg variations. This is not the case of our way of baptizing Archiscreen as a theme, because we have not an Archiscreen as a theme given to us previously with respect to its variations. We only have in our experiences different experiences of screens as variations of the notion of Archiscreen. In this sense, the variations themselves shape and reshape the notion of Archiscreen, which is inseparable from its variations, and which becomes more and more rich thanks to its variations. In this sense, it could be understood as a kind of sensible idea, and I thank you very much because of you mentioned all of my work about the Merleau-Pontian notion of sensible ideas. The Merleau-Pontian notion of sensible ideas is a notion Merleau-Ponty was trying to elaborate in the last pages of the last interrupted chapter of the posthumous work, The Visible and the Invisible. So the very last pages of the very last interrupted chapter. Merleau-Ponty was commenting on some pages about Proust, in which Proust writes about the main character of the first volume of his novel, Research of the Lost Time. This main character, Swann, have had a love affair with a woman, Odette, and that there was a music that had been what Proust calls the national anthem of this love. This love ends, but Swann encounters again this piece of music, and he, thanks to this music, he meets again this peculiar idea of love, which has been the idea of love characteristic of his love affair with Odette. And Merleau-Ponty is very interested about this characterization of the idea of love given by Proust, because it's an idea of love, Merleau-Ponty points out, which is inseparable from the listening of the music. So it's a sensible idea in this sense. Only through the sensible, in this case the listening, I meet the idea. I put something like that in my notion of Archiscreen. The Archiscreen is a kind of sensible idea in the sense that I cannot meet the Archiscreen so as I cannot meet that peculiar idea of love, but through the sensible variation of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I mean, the last part about the sensible loaning from Merleau-Ponty was very interesting for me, because another non-question in that regard for me was that your project places the human body, like in that sense the music, your project places the human body at the origin of screen concept, identifying it as the proto screen. So you mentioned that when you're talking about screen, even a body producing shadow can function like that. So the project identifies it as a proto screen, which is the very source of, I'm quoting, the source of the concept and operation of the arche screen. The body perceived ambiguously as both corpore, body object, and leib, living body, inherently performs the core function of a screening, so intercepting light, hiding what is behind it, and also projecting a shadow, showing its presence. Do you want to add something to this description again?
Yes. First of all, I would like to avoid to use the word origin. Mm-hmm. Because it's a very complicated word in philosophy with many implications I wanted to avoid. And I would like to make a distinction between the notion of archiscreen and the idea of our body as a protoscreen. Mm-hmm. So, as I said, the notion of archiscreen is a notion developing through its variations. We could say that the human body is one of these variations. Mm-hmm. Mm. And we could suggest that our body has been the first variation of the archiscreen, the first experience we had of a screen. But here I have to refer to my post-phenomenological research and influences, the main of which is Deleuze philosophy. There is a verb, a very important to me verb Deleuze uses in his works is the verb retrojection. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting word because phenomenology has usually the idea that truth is in the beginning. And this is something you find in all the Western philosophy, from Plato, the ideas, to phenomenology, to Freudian psychoanalysis. We have to come back and rediscover how the beginning was, because the truth has its roots there. Deleuze, thanks to Proust, shows that things are not like that. In the research of the lost time, the protagonist at some point in a cold day taste once again the flavor of the tea and the cake named Madeleine in France. And this flavor makes him to remind the time of his childhood and the world, the forgotten world of this childhood. So in this sense, we could say that it is the repetition which founds the first time, not vice versa. In a sense, we could paradoxically say that it's the two which found the one. Okay? In this sense, I cannot say our first screen is the body. I can say that I could make retrospectively the hypothesis that my first experience of a screen has been my body. But I can do that only retrospectively. Once I discovered screens in other ways.
All right. So no, I see and is it perhaps here, and it also connects me to the next curiosity that I have, because you were talking about childhood. People can talk about civilization, and they can say that okay, like there is a clash between screen civilization and book civilization. There is a war, and you challenge that notion in a way. You challenge the notion that they are two separate things, and you demonstrate that the relationship between iconic, namely image, and verbal, namely word, technologies, is one of essential complementarity and inseparability. So image and word in your idea. So that's why I see it also in relation to the origin. It is not that far from what you said now. So the proliferation of digital screen highlights this co-originality as digital media deploy multimodal communication that interpenetrates text, images, and sound. So drawing on Western tradition, you explore the metaphor of images as a book for the illiterate, right? Showing how images, showing and attracting, and words, screening and protecting, mutually rely on one another to establish regimes of visibility and speakability. So this historical insight helps critique contemporary imagocentrism, where screens are mistakenly viewed merely as surfaces for displaying images. So there are a lot of things in this curiosity. I know that you can write a book about it, but the parts that you feel as significant, I would be happy to hear, to shed some lights on them, from the clash between screen culture and word culture when it comes to digital media, to this difference between words, screening and protecting, and images, showing and attracting. Feel free if there is anything to...
Thank you for these many known questions.
Yeah.
Disguised as just one known question. Let me follow up what I was telling before. I said I can retroject the hypothesis that my body has been my first screen only afterwards. What I mean? What do I mean? You know that the main way of the dominant way of conceiving human evolution is based on the idea of exteriorization, of a technological exteriorization. Philosophers, but also media theorists like McLuhan and anthropologists, paleoanthropologists share this idea. What does it mean? It means that the evolution of the human being consisted in the fact that the human abilities, and first of all the bodily abilities, has been exteriorized from the body to the environment thanks to technology, and in this way these abilities has been made more powerful. For instance, my dress is an exteriorization of my skin, making more powerful the protecting function of the skin. So the human evolution is this developing of exteriorizations thanks to technology. And we can go until the exteriorization of our memory, thanks to technology. So in this sense, human beings technologically produced technical object called screens. And at some point, we can make the hypothesis that they retrospectively understood that their own body was their own first experience of screen. The umbrella is a kind of technical object, a kind of screen. But what is the umbrella? Is the something detached from the shadow. Ombra. Umbra in Latin is a shadow. So the umbrella is a technical object making the function of I don't know, my hands on my head, something like that. So this was important because you mentioned the word civilization. We wrote a book, Graziano Lingua and I, titled Towards an Anthropology of Screens, in order to suggest that the screen experiences accompanied all the prehistorical and historical cultures of human beings. And we could also develop this idea because the screen culture is not just human. Many non-human animals have a screen culture too. But in this book, we focused on how the screen experiences, the variations of the archi screen characterized, for instance, our prehistorical way of conceiving the painting into Paleolithical cave. There is an important cave here in southern France called the Chauvet cave, which has been discovered only in 1994. And you cannot visit directly this cave right now. But there is an important movie realized by Werner Herzog, who had the chance to go inside with his team. And there are some traces of fire close to the painted wall of one of the painted wall of this cave. This painted wall is painted in the darker part of the cave, intentionally in the darker part. It means that the artists chose to paint in that darkest part, because the images had to be seen at the light of the fires, not at the light of the sun, because the light of the fires are moving lights. And Herzog says maybe they danced between the fires and the wall, projecting their own shadow on the wall itself, and it makes at that point he enter a sequence of Fred Astaire dancing with his shadow in an old movie, suggesting that in that cave the human being were experiences what he calls a kind of proto-cinema. So in this sense, the thinking of the screens, the experiences of the screens were already operating in human cultures, also in the prehistorical age. So once again, is not something just modern. Screens are not something just modern. They are not something like just contemporary.
Can I, Mauro? Can I make a small digression, a small comment or question among the non-questions? One question. Does it mean? I mean, what is the relationship of your project and your understanding of screen, especially arc screen, when it comes to Plato himself? Because Plato depicts human beings in the cave, and there are shadows, but they are then less important. They are illusions, and in Plato there is, of course, this dichotomy between the truth and what we see. So it seems that there are some implications to Platonic view in your project. How do you see yourself? How do you position yourself? Or do you go that far at all?
Thank you. It's a very important question. In two ways. That is to say, what is on the one hand, what is interesting for my notion of archiscreen, as I developed in my first book about screens, philosophy screens, I reread the allegory of the cave of Plato, and what was important to me, it was that nobody pointed out that, but Plato describes two screens in that cave, not just one. That is to say, there is the screen which is the wall of the cave on which shadows are projected, but there are, so this is a screen which has the function of showing. Mm-hmm. But there is also the small wall behind the prisoners, which hides people having on their shoulders the puppets whose shadow are projected on the other screen. Mm-hmm. So this small wall hiding people is another screen.
Mm-hmm. So showing and hiding, both.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. This was the first idea of this inseparability of the showing and the hiding. Mm-hmm. I found in Plato.
All right. Mm.
The other aspect I looked for a short quotation from this book from Cassirer that I edited in Italian, Eidos and Eidolon. It's an article precisely about ideas and images in Plato, and in this article, Cassirer write that for the old Plato, the Plato treating of mathematical knowledge, I quote, no, only the image, only the single sensible case can represent the nature of what is universal and imageless. So the old Plato, in a sense, developed a kind of rehabilitation of screens and of images.
Very interesting. It's from Cassirer.
Cassirer, yes.
Right. Perhaps
sorry, you can understand that there is a. We can say that Merleau-Ponty thinking the sensible ideas according to Proust is not so far from this reading of the old Plato.
But this reading, and old Plato only, right? This reading, right? Because as I said, in this reading, only image can show the imageless something.
The idea.
The idea.
Only images can show. Yeah, the word, the Greek word is the word paradigma. Plato uses. Paradigma means example. So images are paradigmata of ideas. Images we are speaking about the image of a triangle. The image of the triangle, we are speaking about mathematical knowledge. The image of the triangle is what allows me to understand the properties of the triangle.
All right.
In this sense, is a paradigma.
Okay. Perhaps is useful and helpful to go to the idea that is still today, I mean the present day idea or ideology of transparency that you also have addressed in the book. Yeah. You have historicized it as transparency 2.0, which champions total unfiltered visibility and claims to equate it immediately with truth. This ideology fosters the illusion of disintermediation and fuels what the authors call ocular power, where the public gaze supposedly serves to control authority. However, your book reveals this transparency is ideological. Also, you have taken from other authors that it is ideological, and ignoring that all appearance is actually mediated. All appearance, as you use the word transparero, I think the pronunciation, and concealing the opaque mechanisms of economic exploitation and surveillance. The desire for exposure manifests as a form of voluntary servitude, wherein individuals willingly actually participate in systems of control, the digital panopticon, by displaying their private lives, leading to the commodification of their data. I think, yeah, it's true. The idea of desire to be exposed also comes from Bernard Harcourt book that you use, right? But again, it is a very vast area, but because of the limitations of an interview about, a philosophical interview, I try to make the best out of this exchange. And this was very interesting for me. This part of your research was very interesting for me, to move to this transparency 2.0 and the implications and the suggestions that it has for thinking about our present day. Not only involvement, but you say participation. Because in the sense that you believe and you show us that screen is not passive. There is agency in a screen. We as bodies, as humans, we are also participating in this culture, in this transparency culture, let's say. So go ahead. What do you?
So yes, the notion of ideology of transparency to that 0.0 is my idea, and it's the idea of an ideology linked to populistic ideologies, pretending that digital media give us an absolute transparent knowledge of the world. According to a false identification of transparency and immediacy, where the word immediacy literally means without mediation. So the transparency 2.0 is an ideology because there is this promise that thanks to digital media you will have a total knowledge of what happens in the world. And this is, of course, very, very dangerous. Two things to add. The first one is but what about the transparency 1.0? The transparency 1.0 was based not on the hegemony of visuality, like transparency 0.0, thanks to digital media, but the transparency 1.0 was the idea of what German told Publizität, that is to say, the possibility of an open access to knowledge as a right to have knowledges against the shadow of the Ancien Regime during the enlightening period at the end of the 18th century. So in this case, it was the idea of a transparency allowing people to have a knowledge against the shadow of the power, based basically on words, on the encyclopedia, on writing. Whereas the ideology of transparency 2.0 is based on the present ideology, the present hegemony of visual with respect to verbal. Third aspect, what about Trump? Is Trump still ideology of transparency 2.0 or not? This is something Graziano and I discussed and wrote in the preface to the French translation of that book, which will be out beginning 2026. And we pointed out that on the one hand, the ideology of the transparency 2.0 as an ideology is still there, since when Trump was re-elected, you know that Elon Musk published on X, the ancient Twitter, the phrase, "You are the media now." What does it mean, you are the media now? Precisely, in a sense, precisely the ideology of the transparency 2.0. There is no possibility of mediation between you and the world, because you are the media yourself. So in this sense, it's still the same ideology, but in a sense, in another sense, Trump forced this ideology, and even if he suggests, is still suggested that there is a reference to the world, actually this reference became a self-reference to him and to his way of seeing the world, and in this way is the same ideology, but with a slight modification, which helps Trump to give his own images a particular performative power. Because power disguised as a pope or Superman and so on is not just a joke. These images have a performative power, making these images more real than real.
Right. I checked the camera again because I heard something. We don't have that much battery, so we continue if I hear something. God, I have like 2 questions. Because you answered the number 6, I go to so 2 last questions, 8 and 9. There is another aspect now that's a question, finally, although all of them were big non-questions. It's a very short question. So many philosophers, Mauro, from Aristotle to Foucault, distinguish between different modalities of power. Where do you locate your understanding of power within this history? And how does this arc screen help us rethink classical conceptions of power today?
We spoke, we already mentioned Plato's allegory of the cave. In a certain sense, we may say that from Plato's cave to Foucault's panopticon, the regimes of visibility, or what Deleuze calls also the regime of light, are based on a single source of light. And this means that the very structure of the power is linked to this monocentric regime of light. But what happens when we have what Byung-Chul Han calls a digital panopticon? In this case, you have many sources of light, and therefore a different distribution of the power and of the counter power, because you know that someone speaks not only about surveillance, but also about surveillance. That is to say, not only the control exerted by the high level to the low level, but also the counter power trying to control the high level. So, this digital panopticon implies many kind of source of lights, and therefore many kinds of screens. In some cases, these screens are screens placed like perspectival mirror. So mirror showing one what is showed in the other one. And this push us to reformulate the structure of what Foucault calls the economy of visibility. The economy of visibility today has to do with pragmatics of visibility, and this pragmatics of visibility has to say with a pragmatics of screens. So the questions are not only who makes visible, what is made visible, how it is made visible, or who can see me, how, when. That was the questions of Foucault yet, but also who can screen, what can be screened, how can it be screened, and above all, what does it mean to screen? And this is how the archiscreen could help rethink the classical conception of power today.
So, well, actually, I use this opportunity for the last question to say that, given that you have a long career in phenomenology, that was always my curiosity, that as a phenomenologist, who is able to describe the new forms of power, the new forms, as you already mentioned, like this digital panopticon, for example. Is there at all any room for describing forms of resistance, or resistance is already inherent in phenomenology? That is a point of curiosity for me. I would be thankful if you elaborate on that.
Resistance means, first of all, developing a critique. And this is what we did in our dialogue right now. I was asking myself, why do you put in connection this problem of resistance with the problem, with the characterization of phenomenology? As if phenomenology and resistance are not precisely two connected things. Phenomenology and critique are not precisely connected thing. A Brazilian colleague some months ago sent me a quotation from Paul Ricoeur. He found in an article of Paul Ricoeur of I think 1953-54, in which Ricoeur writes that we should develop also a phenomenologie des milieux interposés. A phenomenology of the interposed media, I would say, but media in a wider sense. Ricoeur makes the example of the air, of the fog, and of the screen. So it's something absolutely essential in phenomenology, the fact of describing this, what is the interposition between ourself and the world. And to do that has a particular important political value, because we live in a particularly simplistic way in which, and this is a thing that I would like to stress, complexifying is political. This is my way of resisting, is this effort of showing that things are more complicated than someone say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very important and essential factor when it comes to political. But another side of political for me is also how to reach to the population. You know, you talked about populistic idea that inspired you, to write about the transparency ideology 2.0. But my point is that if one side of the story, as you mentioned correctly, is complex, to make it more complicated, different complexifying to find new faults, as Deleuze would say, to the phenomena. The other side of that is that we want to make it approachable for people. We want to make it reachable for people to understand what is happening, to understand that the screen is not only there on the phone, is everywhere, yeah? And also the relationship between the amount that I am showing, the amount that I am hiding, what is protecting, what is showing, all these things. So that's why for me, resistance has both sides, complexifying, as you said, but also reachability, like it should not only stay in the academia, it is also for the education, for the people. That's why I asked you, what is the role? Well, you answered actually to my question, which always is helpful to know. And you said that why I think that there is a dichotomy, or there is a discrepancy between phenomenology and critique. You are right; it shouldn't be any. But perhaps it is also something that I have learned from Deleuze, that resistance is very political, and it is even prior. Resistance is something that is not only descriptive. It also has to do with our subjectivity. That's why I asked that question.
Yes.
And to our becomings, like the way...
Deleuze had an anti-phenomenologist attitude that I never understood. So I don't think that phenomenology is a neutral description of the world. There is no neutral description of the world possible. When I describe, it's me to describe, and in this sense I am implied in my very description. So my role, my attitude, my position in the polis is already there in the very moment in which I choose to write. In a wider sense, you mentioned also the educational matter. Education from this point of view is today particularly important. Last year I gave a class, philosophy of communication at the University of Turin, precisely devoted to the questions of screens. And I think that today is particularly interesting to teach with the students because, first of all, they have many things to teach you about their screen experiences, which often are very different from yours. So you have a lot of things to learn. And also because I think that the most important problem we have today is that we don't have a common relation with what we call reality. Reality exploded. Someone says reality is something different from what the other one says reality. So we have to re-elaborate a new conception of reality. And from this point of view, this re-elaboration has to do with the sharing of a transgenerational knowledge, a transgenerational reconstruction of, or maybe better, construction of a new idea of reality.
And also transcultural, probably also. Because we have, I mean, I personally, when I was reading your book, I was thinking that, I have different experiences of a screen,
And I would like to know everything about your experience.
But it is like the shadow, like it is a shadow of the, and it is something that should be voiced. It is something that should be also discussed. But you're absolutely right. It is intergenerational, intercultural, and very, very absorbing and interesting in the end of the day. I liked your point when you said that the moment that I decide to write about it, it's political decision. And also for me, the moment that I thought that, okay, I want to come to discussion with a Western thinker who has written about anthropology of screen, that's also a political decision for me to see, okay, is it like overlapping, how much is it overlapping with my experiences and how much we can share. But it was a wonderful exchange. Thank you very much, Mauro.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed the conversation and the book.
Thank you so much.